Hello Internet, my name is Aqua, and today we are going to be discussing RWBY Volume 5 with the special guest, Rebkos.
Heyo!
I'm like waving my arm over here as if she's here, but she's actually probably about, 1,000 miles away. So RWBY Volume 5, Chapter 1 has just come out. We both saw it in theaters because we're horrible nerds like that. Or great nerds.
I went with friends.
I didn't. I also didn't talk to anybody.
So you're antisocial nerd.
Yeah, it was an accident. I was just so blown away by the whole spectacle of the event that I lost my mind.
Accidentally ignored everyone around you.
It happens, all right. Volume 5 has just aired. We're recording this on the day of the release on the episode of the Rooster Teeth, on the Rooster Teeth site.
The episode is now available for First members and will be available for regular Rooster Teeth members on Tuesday and then available for the general public the following Saturday. Ding!
If you're watching this video now, it's available for you
Hey!
on YouTube. And there's a new episode. I'm probably recording another video right now as you're watching this.
Do you really want to try this again?
No. We're going to be going through scene by scene through Volume 5, talking about just whatever we think of at the time, whether it be how things relate to past volumes, things that we have been talked about before, new revelations that are caused by whatever's going on, and we're just going to be diving deep into this thing. I could have phrased that better. So, without further ado, let us begin here. The opening scene. You see our, I'm just like playing the video right now, so I can actually remember, because I haven't actually memorized this.
Yet.
But, yet. Yeah, that's the operative word there. We have our group walking through tunnels and talking about how, basically what happened in Volume 3 and 4 for the most part.
Kind of hanging a lantern on the fact that they went on this giant walking expedition, and then meanwhile, Oscar just, got on a train and went there and was kind of done with it.
Yeah, I thought, because they showed him on the train at some point. I can't remember when. Was it during this episode, or?
No, so they show him on the train right at the end of Volume 4. I actually rewatched Volume 4 the other day, and in preparation for Volume 5, and I started kind of wondering, like, what exactly is the timeline with Oscar relative to everyone else? Like, we know RWBY and gang have been walking for weeks, if not a couple months, and we don't quite know what the timeline is on everyone else. Like, even Yang, between her segments in Volume 4, there's like a couple week delay because you get lines from Tai Yang of like, oh, well, you've gotten much better over the last few weeks, ha ha ha. But even that, we don't quite know how everything's syncing up, and it's almost seeming like we're flashing forward and back in time. And so the question is, like, was it seriously Oscar just, walked 3 blocks up the road from the farmhouse and got on the train, and now here he is? And yeah, all of his scenes were over the course of, a day and a half.
I feel like because of his change in cognition of, like, just not, like, thinking he's, like, crazy at first and not believing any of this, and then eventually believing it and accepting it to the point of being willing to leave home, I feel like his storyline starts at the same, like, everyone starts at the same point and ends at the same point time-wise, but as far as when the scenes take place, there is a lot of time jumping, and that's something that, of course, with these split-up storylines, it's very difficult to handle, and Miles and Carrie even talked about it recently in interviews and such, so... Sure.
But again, that means he's been contemplating life for 3 months or whatever, and then hops on a train and gets there immediately, and we go...
Yeah, pretty much.
Really?
I do remember that, because at the theater screening, they showed episode 10, 11, and 12 of Volume 4 with interviews with Miles and Carrie and some of the other cast members, I believe.
Gray jumped in there a couple times.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was in there. I couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him on the train and just thinking, man, this kid's kind of fucking easy compared to everybody else.
I don't know. He's got a voice in his head, so that,
as far as travel concerns,
slack.
He hasn't gotten almost killed yet. He hasn't been attacked yet. Oh, yes. Yet is a very... it's gonna happen. Because, guess what? He's with the rest of the group now, but we'll leave that for later. Right now, so they're all reminiscing, and then Crow's like, oh, we're gonna take the scenic route, and we get to see our first bit of all of Mistral, which is pretty rad. It's all built on top of a mountain, and like literally the higher up you are in the mountain, it sounds like the higher class you are. Because they said it's like, it's really shady.
Avoid the lower levels. Which I think they alluded to in A World of Remnant as well.
They did, yep. And it's really interesting to like actually see that in action, though, that it's like there are all of these different parts of this culture and like these segments of these people's lives that are just like completely separate from each other, or very different from each other, but they're all in one area.
One of the things I really enjoyed about this is they actually did the 2D stationary animation again, and we saw this at the beginning of Volume 3. And at the time it just seemed kind of jarring because it was kind of like, did you guys forget to animate this part? But and then it didn't, I don't think it came up even once in Volume 4. Like, I don't think they used that artistic style at any point during that volume. And then to see it immediately come back in this volume as kind of the setting the stage introduction element, I thought that was kind of an interesting choice to just come back and do that again. So
I feel like that was a matter of like not being able to model that many unique characters, because for first members you also have access to like behind the scenes thing. I think that's first members only, right?
I think
like,
so.
Permanently. So they had up drawings of like all of these people, and eventually I'm sure like they would have gotten modeled, but like they're all very unique characters, and because usually for their NPCs there's no player characters in this. Video games, everybody.
But even
the
for,
background
say,
characters is what I'm trying to say. For
like,
the background characters, it's like they would take pieces and just like model pieces and like just have them randomly generated from there, which works really well. But this is a completely different style than anybody else. Yeah,
but like say when Blake and Sun show up in Menagerie in Volume 4. Everyone's animated because our primary characters are walking through, and so we were introduced to Menagerie effectively through Sun's eyes. But our introduction to, say, the Vital Festival in Volume 3 was we've got this quick narration from Port and I am completely blanking on his name. Oobleck, thank you. Port and Oobleck in the booth, and then we're flashing around the world to just kind of these moments of setting the scene of everyone around the world is watching what's happening, and they're the at the time jarring 2D animation. And again, we're going back to this. We're just very quickly setting the scene of this is everything. Here's a quick introduction. Here's these very literally two-dimensional characters going about in their daily lives. And I just thought that was interesting.
But after that whole thing goes on, then they're just like, oh, cool, yeah, we're here now, this is awesome. And then we move over to Weiss in her stowaway ship that she paid a lot of money for.
Yes.
And gets a distress call from some people getting attacked by some sort of Grimm, most likely. And
now, I had two questions / observations in this scene. One, does the pilot know who he's carrying?
I was really wondering about that as well, because it didn't seem like it, but she should be a figure that's known all around the world.
You'd think it's kind of the,
especially after the Vital Festival.
Yeah, of like, wait, this is clearly the Schnee heiress. What is she doing here? Like, this random teenager with glowing white hair shows up and hands you a large amount of money with the Schnee crest on her back. Who's this? But the way he's treating her is very like, all right, kid, whatever, I'm happy to take your money.
Not only is she the Schnee heiress, she also was in the Vital Festival and also fought during the Battle of Beacon.
Well, that part,
and has a sword with her.
Less known. Yeah, she's got a sword. Well, like, who the fuck is this kid?
I guess they don't know necessarily like everyone's roles that they took in the Battle of Beacon, because comms were down at the time. Nobody knew, because as we'll get to later, Lionheart mentioned that we just saw like a bunch of shit going down and then nothing.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see Weiss's reaction throughout the scene of, once he gets the distress call, and then he's like, no, we need to stay away from them because I'm doing something super illegal right now, which doesn't seem that illegal. I guess it's because she is such a high profile person.
Yeah, and she is intentionally paying, she's effectively paying him to smuggle her. Like, there's probably Atlas rules of this is not a passenger ship, thou shalt only take cargo. So it could be subtly illegal, or it could also be he is actively bypassing regulations or like certified travel routes because she is paying him to do so.
They're also shutting down the borders to Atlas. If not right now, it's in effect, or if it's going to be soon in effect. And, you know, he's taking someone out of Atlas. So that's not necessarily what.
So we've got this pseudo Han Solo character just because he's a smuggler.
Yeah.
But one thing I did note is, so Weiss is like, aren't we going to go help? And he's like, of course not. We're a cargo ship. And then he turns the ship left. Like, he very notably turns the ship left. And then the camera jumps outside, and then the ship hangs a right.
I did kind of notice that, and I thought it was weird, but I didn't really think about it at all.
I am entirely wondering if, as soon as the camera cuts away, Weiss pulls out more money and is like...
That's entirely possible. Or just
let's go play rescuers.
Takes over the ship, yeah.
Well, I don't expect her to, like, stab the guy.
No, but, I mean, if you have a weapon and the other dude doesn't, you're still at quite the advantage in
she has the ship. Like, what's she gonna do? You could just be like, all right, like, crash it, try.
He doesn't have to be conscious. She can probably fly a ship.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's very possible because...
Based on Chibi, she can't make dinner.
Oh, in the promo art that they released for some of it, there were... hornets, like grim hornets.
they like fly through some sort of region, and
it looked like there was a ship similar to that maybe in there. Or no, there were floating islands. I remember. I can't remember what else there was, and that was in the trailer, I believe. Yeah, actually,
I mean, most of the footage that was in the trailer, I think, was in this opening episode. So there were a couple things that were not,
which I was very glad about as well.
Yes. Like, I was definitely glad to see so many of the things that were spoiled or alluded to in the trailer just were the first thing we're talking about anyway.
Yep. And for me, the big thing that I mentioned to you when it came out, I believe, it was the fact that Crow's like, Raven has the Spring Maiden. And I was just like, when did that get confirmed? Like, what the fuck? Why are you showing that in the trailer?
Really?
And then... segue right here. We come back to next scene being Ranger and Crow going to the school of Haven.
Haven.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I thought that sounded wrong in my brain. Where no one's there at first, and
yeah, we've
Crow
got
seems
this
to be
like
a little confused about this.
He seems annoyed. Like he just has this moment of like. Which I wasn't quite sure how to interpret, because it's almost like discomfort and irritation. A
little bit, yeah, which makes sense considering flash forward a little bit, we get to meet Lionheart in a hilarious way.
Yeah.
And freaking out, he mentions almost immediately, why aren't you guarding the relic?
And then Lionheart's like, why are you... Spoilers? What?
Yeah, spoilers. It's like, dude, there are people like right here. Which, Lionheart seems to be very surprised that, you know, these bunch of teenagers were filled in on this, like, you know, secret kept around the world and everything. And
well, yeah, I mean, given how close mouth they are about it in Volume 3, like, it's entirely possible that Volume 4 Crow's train of thought was, I'm probably about to die. Which, you know, had they not been rescued, Crow probably would have died, so...
He was really close to dying.
He got nice and maimed and poisoned.
Yeah, it took a while for them to find somebody. The whole conversation with Lionheart is very interesting because we get to find out about what happened to one of the other kingdoms during the fall of Beacon. And not good, unsurprisingly.
I was entertained by the weird lines they kept having Nora throw in, because she just kind of kept hanging a lantern on some of the things that were being rushed, like her, this isn't going how we thought it would at all, would it? Wink at the audience.
Oh, yeah. That was still good, though. I enjoyed that. I thought it was a little bit overbearing at first, but it's Nora, so just the way she can deliver those lines.
Yeah, like if it wasn't Sam Ireland doing that, it probably would have fallen flat.
Oh yeah. So we find out that Crow knows where Raven is, as well.
At least Crow thinks he knows where. Well, okay. I'm sorry. Crow thinks he knows where the Spring Maiden is. He supposedly does know where Raven is.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing, is that the Spring Maiden is with Raven, most likely. Who, in the intro/outro of this episode, intro of the rest, I think we get to see a little bit of the Spring Maiden, but we'll get to that later. So Crow wants to leave immediately, which makes sense, as does everybody else. And Lionheart's like, yeah, hey, remember how Beacon fell? Everybody got real sad about that, and that made all the Grimm come. And it was really not great for a while, and it's still not great. So not only did Beacon fall, and like, you know, Vale had a huge hit to it and everything, but also, what is this kind of called? My brain is just not firing right now. Is Mistral the name of the kingdom or just the city?
Kingdom of, I think it's Kingdom. Now, one of the things in this scene, I know Lionheart is acting like all of the huntsmen have been taken away, but I don't quite buy it. Like, I half expect them to open up one of the rooms that they're passing by and there just be a pile of dead bodies.
See, yeah, something that interested me a little bit about him talking about this, because he says this kingdom is in shambles.
And it's looking pretty good. Yeah, like, it's got like the intro, majestic waterfall thing going.
Even the people selling drugs in the alleyways are smiling.
Yeah, like, and it looks like the humans and the faunus are hanging out together, getting along. Like,
which is also something really cool to see, because this is the first kingdom that we've seen that it's like in the World of Remnant that you talked about earlier. They also said that the faunus and humans get along, and there was an equal amount of humans and faunus here, which is really cool.
Yeah, to see. Like, it seems like we're in a pretty picturesque and happy area, and then meanwhile you've got Lionheart declaring shambles, and it's like, are you just a little over dramatic?
I have to say, from Volume 4, we got to see a pretty decent amount of the kingdom, at least like some of the, ruins of towns and villages and such. And so there are things not going super well in some areas, but the main part of the kingdom itself seems to be thriving, and nobody seems to be worried at all. So I thought that was a little odd.
Even the things that we saw in Volume 4 that were messed up, we saw the town that Ren and Nora are from that was destroyed 10 years ago. We saw that the town that got destroyed by the Branwen tribe due to them, presumably them, just because, bandits, and therefore it's all their fault. And then a town that was never built. So we didn't actually see a lot of recent damage, and even the recent damage was more due to bandits causing panic than anything that happened in Volume 3. Right.
So that's something definitely interesting to note, because of something we see a little bit later after this whole conversation of saying, we can't do it, well, I'll do whatever I can, blah, blah, blah. They say, okay, well, I guess if that's all we can do, we'll figure something out so we can get there sooner. They all leave.
I did want to give a quick I did want to give a quick shout out to the animators in this scene, because I did notice that they are getting better at both background acting and continuity. So there were one of my big complaints with Volume 4 particularly is one of the things that I noticed seems to have fallen off recently is a problem that you actually run into theater with actors on stage, where if someone isn't talking, the people around them tend to not do anything. And this is kind of a example of bad acting, because you should be in your character, you should be in the moment. A great example of this in Volume 4 is when the sea monster shows up, and the first mate comes running up to the captain and goes, I don't remember what her line is, but it's something like, "We've never fought anything this big before," and she holds up her arms. And then she just stands there holding up her arms for like a full 30 seconds, not moving, with her arms up, and the captain goes, "Oh, we've never seen something this big before." And it's like, dude, put your arms down. Blink. Do something.
That was actually something that I very highly noticed in Volume 4.
Yeah.
And in the last 3 episodes, even while we were watching it in theaters, because I was just like watching it and like looking at the animation so I could compare it to the new episode. Yep. And that's something that I noticed, like, it happened almost at every cut. It was almost like, instead of just, it's like they started the animation like a frame after.
Yep.
And then they ended it a frame before.
It's every actor on stage who's not talking turns and looks at the one who's talking and then just does nothing. Mm-hmm. And it's something that takes practice for theater actors to be like, oh, so-and-so is talking. I don't have anything to do. Oh, my character has a pipe. I'm going to start messing with my pipe so that I'm doing something in the background and it's just interesting in setting the scene. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I saw it a lot in Volume 4, and I would just sit there cringing from an acting point of view of, oh my god, put your arms down. Yes. But even in this episode alone, like that scene with everyone in Lionheart's office, there's a lot of effectively actors on stage, and they are doing stuff. They're fidgeting. John clenches his fists at one point, and then And even before that, he shifts around and he puts his hand up on the hilt of his sword. And one of the things, which again is very common in earlier seasons, of the camera angle would change and then everyone would reset their position. And if you watch that scene carefully, you get multiple camera angle changes, and Jean keeps his hand on his sword the entire time. And then at some point he lowers it down and goes back to just standing with it at his side. But that is just one of those subtle details that if you're not making sure you're maintaining the continuity, it's just going to get lost. And it was, to see that scene play out was like, this is really well done right now. This is very clean.
It really felt like, when I was watching this morning, that's one of the things I noted, that it felt like they animated the entire scene and then did the camera angles afterward.
Yes.
And if that's what they did or not, like, whatever it is, it made it
they probably didn't, just because that would be a nightmare to render.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's that attention to detail of having everyone properly laid out as you flip the camera around.
And you're talking about people in the background still moving around and such, and even though Ren and Nora are sitting here on the couch, just kind of like not really talking a whole lot, not being in the scene a whole lot, but they still look like they're alive.
Yeah, they're present.
It's very nice.
The term in theater is usually being present in the scene, versus completely breaking character and just sitting there like a robot.
Right.
And so just seeing that much more dynamic environment was like, all right, the animators are very much finding their stride with this. And then even like the doors open correctly. Like, I know there was a scene in Volume 4, we go into Jacques' office at some point, and Weiss comes in opening the door one way, and then I think Ironwood leaves opening the door the other way.
Oh, really?
And it was like, hinges generally go one way, guys. Double ones, you don't. Just no. And so, like, when they left Lionheart's office, I very specifically looked for the doors, and they went the way they were supposed to.
It's the kind of detail work that I love in anything, honestly. But so before, I forgot actually, because I didn't watch through the rest of the way yet. Before the W pops up, which I mentioned, we go to what Blake's going on with.
Yeah, I think that scene's actually split up a bit more, but we just did it all in one go. That's fine.
So we see Sun and Gira getting along for the first time, which is yelling about something. And cute, yes. And Callie mentions it, and then Sun is I love Sun's reaction in this, where he's like, after Callie is like, you two are finally getting along or whatever, and then Sun just like, he's almost like scared or like apologetic. It's just like,
I'm pretty sure, Papa Belladonna is gonna kill him at some point, so
yeah. Yeah, he Gira gives him a look. We'll just say that. But then Blake comes through, is like, don't worry guys, whatever. And then she steps outside and just like, I just want a moment. And then we get a certain chameleon girl showing up and being like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be here.
Initial speculation, Blake and Ilya are totally exes. Just 100%. That is my headcanon until proven otherwise. Just those two used to go out. Oh god, yes.
It kind of seemed like they seemed pretty close in the flashback in the Blake trailer, so it wouldn't surprise me too much. but I don't believe that necessarily, since
no,
I feel like she was with.
This is my headcanon. You must.
Oh no, that's fine. It's totally possible. The only reason I wouldn't think so is because, to me, like, she would have been with Adam the entire time he was around, at least.
Quite possibly.
And it sounded like he was already there, because we know most likely from, Blake talking about in volume, 2? 1? I don't even remember now. No, it would have been 2, how the White Fang went from a peaceful group to a hateful group.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Sienna Khan might be the one that did that instead of Adam. But I feel like that's when Adam started, like, rising through the ranks.
Yeah.
And, like, that's when
we seem to have a little bit
older.
of continuity and timeline questions where Adam isn't the leader of the White Fang, but he seems to be taking the fall, so to speak, for the change in direction.
In Vale, certainly, because it seemed like almost an isolated movement, what happened with the whole thing in Vale and what Adam was pulling, and now he wants to, like, overthrow the leader of the White Fang, as they said in the end of Volume 4, I think it was. Because that was something that in the theater thing, they like, mentioned that somewhere, that it's like, Adam is planning to take over the White Fang.
That could be.
And Hazel was there to, like, go with him to meet Sienna Khan. So there's probably going to be some fight like that happening soon. And even in the intro,
it's implied.
which was at the end of this episode, we see Hazel and Adam standing next to each other. So there's that as well. So things are going to get real spicy. But for now, we just have Ilya coming in and saying, hey, maybe you should leave, because whatever you're planning, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
like, you're going to lose.
So Blake seems to be convinced that she has politically won. Like, she is just completely, no, the people will not stand for this. The Faunus will 100% side with her. And just, plot-wise, no, that's not going to happen. Shit has to hit the fan somehow. And the way Ilya is talking, she makes it sound very physically threatening, like there is a assassination plot coming. But I'm wondering if it's not an actual assassination from a murder point of view, but more of a political assassination, because Blake is potentially set up to take a more serious fall than she's appreciating. Because she was probably, to some degree, an upper up in the White Fang, and she was at the fall of Beacon, and frankly, she's Yang's partner, and Yang maimed that poor Haven kid, leading into all of the shit hitting the fan.
I think people know at this point. That's kind of something I was curious about, because also during the discussion with Lionheart, they were talking about, I think it was Nora mentioned, everybody, or no, it was, who was it? I did somebody, RWBY probably, mentioned Emerald, Mercury, and Cinder were from Haven.
So Jean, to be at least. Jean
and they're like, it's all fake. So Jean, was Jean okay?
Yeah.
Did they even ever meet? Emerald and Mercury and John? I can't even think of a time.
I don't think so, but RWBY almost certainly filled them in, because like, RWBY knew that Emerald and Mercury and Cinder were all on a team together, and so she got to put all the pieces together and realize that they were set up.
Yeah, and RWBY thought that Emerald was her friend for a decent amount of that as well. So yeah,
beautiful, beautiful scene in Volume 3 of Emerald being like, "I hate them. They're just so happy all the time."
How those new friends.
Love that moment.
I hate them. It's great.
Oh my god.
So I don't know if that's widespread information that was all like a staged thing or not, because I feel like
probably not.
Because even Lionheart didn't mention it when he was talking about it, because he's like, we all saw that poor girl get ripped to shreds. He didn't say anything about it, and that chick just fucking break that dude's leg almost off.
So the official fall of Beacon starts with the Pyrrha versus Penny fight, because that's when all the Grimm show up and everything. But I mean,
that's when the tournament stops, and then everything
and just really everything starts falling apart. So it could be, to some degree, the populace has already forgotten that Yang maimed Mercury, quote unquote.
It's very lesser of a shock.
Yeah,
seeing like someone get drawn and quartered versus
and frankly, even the I know there was, it might have been on the Volume 3 commentary where they point out that Mercury was supposed to get more seriously maimed. Like, I think his leg was supposed to get blown off entirely, versus just him cradling the leg going, why would she do that? Which is why in Cinder's final speech, she has the comment of a dismemberment. And it's like, well, he didn't actually get dismembered. He just, you know, got punched in the knee, and that kind of sucks. But even so, like, I think the obvious answer is that Blake is in physical danger and, like, the White Fang are going to try to take her out, but that martyrs her. And given her conviction that she's already politically won and just that everyone is going to turn against the White Fang accordingly, I suspect they're going for a full-blown political assassination. Maybe they intend to murder the current leader of the White Fang and stage it so that it looks like Blake did it.
Oh, it could be. Does Adam know that she's in Menagerie right now? Because I know those
She does, because of the creepy dog friends.
Yeah, I was going to say,
their names are.
Yeah, I was trying to remember who they're with, because I thought Ilya said something about, like, they're not with Adam, but she is.
But also, remember in Volume 4 when they leave after discovering Blake's there, and they're kind of like, shall we inform Brother Adam? Because they're creepy.
Oh, that's right. Things probably not going to get too good for her, but as far as I see it from Adam's perspective, like, I don't think he would be that worried about her, because last time that he saw her, like, he stabbed her, and so he's probably gonna be like, she's gonna stay out of my way, I need to do this first, and then I can take care of Blake afterwards.
But see, no, Adam is completely obsessed with her. Like, you've got a straight up stalker ex-boyfriend. Sure. Hello, my darling, let me stab you and yell at you about how this was our dream as I stab you. And it's just like, so he is probably peeved that she got away, and if anything, she is going to serve as a distraction where he's a liability to Team Salem, because something may come up where he will drop the ball because there's an opportunity to go after Blake.
I could see that, yeah. That makes sense. Oh, we'll just have to see now, won't we? Because we don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff brewing, like, on all fronts at this point, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and I did forget as well that Blake got Ilya's scroll when she dropped it, and that's where she got all this information from, and that's what she's going public with. But it sounds like it's not really all of that damning evidence.
Well, at least it's not sufficiently damning with sufficient names, because the two dog friends, whatever their names were, blamed everything on Ilya. And so, I mean, Blake even calls that out of, like, they're letting you take the fall, and you know that's not true. Yeah. And while Ilya seems upset, she's willing to take that fall, and if anything, just more worried about Blake's well-being, knowing that whatever is being planned is just not going to work.
Right.
Which, frankly, Ilya is probably risking a lot coming to Blake like this. Because Blake could have easily just called for security, or if the White Fang found out Ilya was doing this. Ugh.
Well, it would have been bad for her, yeah.
Yeah.
So now we do go back to Lionheart, and they discuss things that we already talked about. Spring Maiden, all that such, Kuro's drinking.
I did have one wild piece of speculation here. So they discussed that the Spring Maiden went missing over a decade ago. So specifically 1 decade, not 2. So we're probably talking somewhere in the 12 to, say, 17 years ago range, which would be when Summer Rose was killed. So I'm kind of wondering if potentially Summer was responsible for maybe babysitting the Spring Maiden, and Raven killed her.
Yeah. That would be pretty fucked up.
It would. Oh my god.
I was actually curious if this season they would talk about Summer at all, because I have been curious about her since, before Volume 1, because Red Trailer, it's like, the gravestone, oh, it's your mom, what? So, there's still, and that would, further kind of crush RWBY's soul a little bit. It's like, oh
God, yes.
It's like my sister's mom killed my mom. It's like, oh.
Yeah. And RWBY supposedly looks a lot like her mother. She shows up, and Raven probably reacts accordingly because now we have Summer Rose back from the dead.
And she has silver eyes.
And she has silver eyes.
Which she probably knows about. She knows about the maidens.
There is the I don't want to call it subtle, but it's one that I've never seen people terribly talk about. In Volume 4, when they're carrying the unconscious Crow around, he starts muttering and going like, "Ty, she's not coming back." Mm-hmm. So my guess is, that was referring to Summer's not coming back, and potentially Crow knows that the Spring Maiden is with Raven because he saw this go down. He potentially witnessed his sister murdering their former teammate and taking the Spring Maiden. So that's how he knows, and B, lots of family drama destined to occur there.
Oh, yes.
Again, wild speculation, but that would be pretty messy pretty quick.
I mean, considering where the show has been already, like, we've already had a somewhat brutal on-screen death.
Oh, yeah.
No blood or anything, but I mean, getting shot through the lungs, not a fun way to die.
Nope.
So,
and can you just imagine RWBY finding out that Raven killed her mom, and then RWBY going berserker on Raven and Yang stopping her?
I don't think Yang would be able to stop her if she went silver eyes.
Probably not, but if she, but
I would
Yang
say the Spring Maiden would stop her,
try
and then
to
maybe
get in the way. I can't see Yang standing idly by as RWBY attacks her mother.
I would think that before anything, the Spring Maiden would be that Bandelline's first line of defense. So, like,
quite possibly,
a Huntress is coming at their leader, probably going to get in the way, even if it's a silver-eyed warrior, and that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then if RWBY kills her, then she could become the Spring Maiden. Everything's fine, except for the fact that RWBY killed somebody. But that's okay.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's... Hey, she already maimed a guy cutting his tail off, and we're all okay with that, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. She got called a bitch.
Yeah.
So, yes, after we had the whole discussion with Lionheart and all of that, we see the W pop up that I mentioned earlier. And
yes, which ruins my old theory.
It ruins everyone's theories that I've seen so far.
Meh.
Like pre-Volume 4.
One other thing in this scene. Sorry, I keep backtracking. I really enjoyed this scene. Like, I thought it was very well executed. Jean specifically being the one to ask about Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald, and visibly getting angry about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cinder is the...
Exactly. But this tells me he is, kind of on a personal revenge mission, as much as we want to pretend that, we're helping RWBY with her quest. No, Jean wants to get even. But meanwhile, Emerald still has probably the single most terrifying semblance of anyone of this ability to create wild illusions that people react to accordingly. I had a crazy theory a while ago that it would be, fun/horrible for Yang to be having some sort of hallucination which leads her to attacking RWBY. But frankly, we could put that on Jean just as easily.
It's true.
Although
I think Cinder is equally as, wanting revenge on RWBY as Jean wants revenge on Cinder.
Quite possibly, but we show up at a fight where it's Cinder, RWBY, Jean, and Emerald. And Emerald puts the whammy on Jean, and suddenly we have Jean attacking RWBY, believing that she's Cinder.
Yeah. That's entirely possible. Although I think RWBY would be able to deal with that,
I don't know. That gets messy real quickly because she's going to have a hard time fighting off Jean just on principle.
That's true, yeah. She's definitely more skilled, by a factor of about 1,000.
But now she'll have Emerald, Cinder, and a really pissed off Jean to deal with.
So I am curious if we're going to see something from Jean like we saw from Ren at the end of Volume 4.
Yeah, where he just loses his cool and goes rushing in and either gets himself killed or someone else seriously hurt.
I could certainly see that happening.
I just like watching my characters suffer.
Those feelings. Oh yeah, it's as much as we love all these characters. It's there's no happiness without sorrow. So, like, if we want something for our characters to feel amazing, then they're gonna have to feel terrible first. And based on the song for the intro, it's gonna get pretty bad.
Which I'm okay with.
Oh, absolutely. It's there's so many things happening, and I'm so glad to see like kind of the politics of the world moving along more than just people traveling.
Yeah. Also, I really hope Crow's lying with that map and he wasn't stupid enough to be like, derp derp, here's your map. I don't trust you.
Well, if you recall where you saw the W first, it was when the schematics for Penny came up and that W was there. And guess what? Crow put his phone on the table just like he did when, or just like Ironwood did. And then from that same table, we see the W pop up. So he probably has access to all that information. And regardless, he probably recorded that entire conversation.
Well, yeah, and you also saw Lionheart hit the, he like hit a bunch of buttons on the keyboard and downloaded the map. So hopefully that's a fraudulent map.
It said disconnected on it. I went back and watched that scene.
I think it said like copying and then disconnected.
Really? Because I tried to freeze frame it. I'm really curious now because I tried to freeze frame it. Because I was really curious as to what that said, and all I could see on the phone was disconnected. Either way, sure.
I really hope that's the fake map, and Crow wasn't that dumb.
I feel like Crow wants to trust Lionheart enough because, like, he wanted to trust Ironwood as well, but he was being an idiot, as he still is. And even Lionheart's like, that guy got really fucked up in the head with whatever happened in Vale there. Like, things are not okay with him.
We also have Crow walking into this situation very suspicious. So
I feel like he's not one to be super cautious around people that he thinks are friendly.
I don't know. He already yelled at him and knocked all his books off the table, which was, I thought, unnecessary.
It was a little excessive.
Like, what the book do to you?
I also noticed when Crow held up his phone, it didn't have the gold diamond on it for like when it's in its closed mode. There's like the button that you hit to open it.
Yeah, they may have just changed the models.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Or, you know, it's the iPhone 8.
He probably has an older phone that doesn't close.
It's the iPhone 8 or 9 or I don't know.
But he did point to that gold button in Volume 3. So I rewatched that 2 days ago.
Yeah, but he's like, this is the send button, and it's not.
I mean, maybe it is.
No.
Maybe it's just an all-purpose button.
That's all right. I guess it's dumb like the iPhone. Yeah. Look at my phone. Anyway.
Exactly. Anyway, so we have we discovered the W is belonging to Watts, which I didn't recognize his voice at first when I watched it in theaters, and like I heard somebody mutter, "It's like, oh shit, that's Watts" or something like that, and I was like, oh. Okay, because I thought it was Penny's. Like, I was in my brain, it was like Penny's dad. Like, that's it. But
who we've never heard speak.
Maybe this is the first time. I don't know. I was wanting to believe a lot of things when I was watching that, because I was just
thought there was going to be a second episode.
Yeah. So then Crow goes off to the bar. The rest of the team, Ranger, does their own thing. And then we see the scene from Volume 4 where Oscar meets Crow and gets his cane, which is great.
Yes. Pipsqueak.
It's kind of odd. It was kind of odd that they included the scene in its entirety.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to do it, but I wanted to pull them up as a side-by-side and see if anything did change. Because I was surprised. It's
the literal same exact animations and voice recordings from Volume 4, but I don't know if it's in the new engine with the new lighting and stuff or not.
So Volume 4 was the new engine.
Right, but they've since like they've
gotten
changed
better
the lighting.
at it, so they may have just
they've changed the lighting,
re-rendered it or whatever. Really. But yeah.
But it looks to be the exact same thing from Volume 4. Like I said, at least the animation and voice acting is. And
then we skip to Yang.
And that's fun. We have a little bit of a parallel from Volume 1 or I guess her trailer, actually, when she walks into Junior's bar. And it's like,
I'd like to think this is just a homage to Barbara dealing with guys in bars in general. Like,
oh, probably a little bit at least.
And then the ridiculous Goldilocks Three Little Bears reference of this and just right. And it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yeah. Because it's something that I feel like I always forget to like explain this to people who are new to the show and such, but like this is basically just a bunch of fairy tales and stuff fighting each other.
Oh yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I love the show in the first place. If you didn't know, if you're just watching this video and you're new to RWBY or what have you, then you should go look up on the RWBY wiki and see, because most of every character, main character at least, is a reference to some fairy tale story. Like
I think they all are supposed to be. They're supposed to be either a literary allusion or a myth or at least a historical figure. Which, Frank, I'm surprised that's like the last thing you remember to tell people. It's usually the first thing I explain to them, because it's like, yeah, so it's this show about fighting monsters, but really the interesting thing here is
yeah, I don't know, like that's just not something, like that was one of the main reasons that I loved the concept at first, but for some reason just something I always forget to say. And even
I think most of my friends just don't like anime, so when it's like, I have this sort of anime show for you, and they're like, I don't want to watch it, and it's like, but give me a minute.
Oh yes, and that's one of the things, like the story of all this like goes so deep, and all the illusions and everything. And just like in Volume 2, during the dance after Cinder goes on her little expedition,
be back by midnight.
Be back by midnight. And I like, for some reason, I think at the time I remembered that, but I since forgot it. And when I watched it again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Cinderella.
Hey!
So I always love those little allusions to their source material. But we have a dude sitting on her, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to touch your hair. Hey, nah.
No, you're not.
Something that was a little odd to the animation about this when he's bouncing around the room, which of course, like saying, oh, the animation of him, you know, bouncing cartoonishly around the room is odd, but it looked like the floor, like the walls and the ceiling were sucking him up rather than him bouncing off of it.
I mean, just that may also be that just may be a problem with the collision engine. But yeah,
no, it's a smoothing thing. It's in animation. There's like, that's not, yeah, because he like fully stops his momentum and then like goes again. So it's, I mean,
like, he kind of went like really a pinball ball or a frog. Like there were a couple points where it was like, is this guy just like a frog faunus going boing boing boing?
It's not as bad as I thought it was, but
it was pretty bad. It was pretty extreme.
It looked a little odd, I'll say. Like I enjoyed the
there were one too many bounces for me to accept it.
Yeah, like that dude's dead, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
But then, so something really interesting to me, and something that I saw on the Reddit as well when I was looking at the discussion thread and everything, is that her left hand or human hand is shaking.
Oh yeah,
when she goes to pick up the water bottle. Which I'm not really sure what caused that, because that's obviously like a PTSD kind of thing. Yeah,
so I had kind of two ideas about it. Like, adrenaline just makes you shake. So that it could just be, we're going to go, she's a little PTSD. This is kind of her first time in a fight, not with her father. And so she may just be kind of getting back into the groove of it. But she did also activate her semblance, and I'm kind of wondering if she may have some hesitation with using her semblance, because as Tai Yang pointed out, she keeps over-relying on it, and that is what is getting her in trouble and is responsible for her losing her arm, of just losing control and going full anger mode.
Yeah, and the last time she really used that we saw at least, was when she got her arm cut off.
Yep.
So, I mean,
this may be the first time she's activated her semblance in months.
So that was really interesting to see that, like, oh, she's not okay. Like,
no.
she's leaving, she's doing all this stuff, she's on her own, blah, 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 and she's, like, taking care of herself, but she is not necessarily okay, like, mentally.
Yep.
Still going through that stuff, which, I mean,
which
like,
I'm
if
very
you get your arm
excited
cut off,
for.
You know it's gonna happen. But yeah, it's really good to see that they're.
I think Yang had the least screen time in Volume 4, and I loved her arc probably more than anyone else's, just because they were attempting to address this. She is not okay.
Yeah, it's
and she's still not, and she's probably not going to be for a while, and we're probably going to see that explode or collapse in some manner when she has to confront possibly Adam, but even possibly Blake.
Yeah, I mean, someone who again mentioned, I can't remember where this was, but someone mentioned that like she has like serious abandonment issues now. And,
oh yeah,
like,
just
Raven,
constantly.
Like Raven was the whole thing, like, and she was like, not over that because she was still chasing after her and everything, but she had it in control, and then Blake just left her without saying anything.
And then, frankly, so did RWBY.
It's true, yeah.
Like, she could just generally be seeing people as, like, she chose not to go after her sister, which I think is very interesting. Mm-hmm. And the question is kind of more deep down, why? Is she mad at RWBY? Does she think RWBY can handle it? Does she think she's not good enough to protect RWBY anymore?
I feel like RWBY was writing letters back home. I don't know if they were getting them or not.
Probably not.
Probably not. But at the end of Volume 4, we do see
the map.
Yeah, that's very true. But
where are my
at the
letters?
end of Volume 4, we do see Yang like pull up to a sign and say something like about RWBY, like, "Oh, when I see you again, you're gonna like get an earful or whatever." I can't remember what she says exactly, but she alludes to like, "Whenever I see RWBY again," and then leaves. But then we see her. It's like, I'm looking for someone. It's very, like I said, her original trailer, which is really cool. It's kind of interesting because it's like back to square one for her in a way. So that's kind of like a cool like thing to see, or an interesting thing to see at least. But then it's like we find out that she is looking for Raven, and then the dude that she punches out at the door is like, "Hey, maybe I know where that's at, or where she's at." And
yeah, I don't know if we trust Frogman.
Probably not. He probably knows where some bandits are. Although even the
maybe
like,
you want to find some bandits.
I can help you with that. But I know, like, the fact that the like shopkeeper there, who wasn't shopkeep by some miracle, I guess we're not in Vale, so maybe he's just like, his lineage is only to Vale. He knows about Raven.
No. That's just the shopkeep as rendered in Maya.
New shopkeep.
New shopkeep.
But he knew about Raven even, which I thought was really interesting because I guess Neo knew about her as well somehow, which I'm still curious about. Yeah. Going back to like, I think we both probably rewatched
Crow
all the
calls
series.
it out as the Branwen tribe of that is supposed to be something we've heard of.
Yeah.
So it could be that it's effectively like a known terrorist group where she's just the leader of it, and maybe Vale doesn't have to deal with bandits as often because they're more of a walled kingdom. But once you get out of there, it might be the equivalent of you're in downtown LA and someone makes a comment about the Bloods and you're like, oh shit.
There's something interesting that I didn't really think about until now is we never really heard about bandits when the group was in Vale.
Correct.
Never heard about people getting attacked by anything except Grimm. And now that we're in Mistral,
we had a little bit of that in World of Remnants, but yeah, it was never a big city discussion.
For the past, right? Not like currently necessarily, or I can't remember.
I feel that might have been like Volume 2, World of Remnants, of talking about the kingdoms in general and how people do try to set up settlements, but they are sometimes raided by bandits. Like I do feel that was mentioned much earlier, at least in a World of Remnant.
But this is the first time we're really seeing what bandits do.
Yes.
Or can do. And now that we know that, hey, this bandit tribe has a friggin' maiden with them that has had at least a decade of experience using her powers and, getting stronger and all that. Because I'm sure that Raven wasn't like, you can just sit on your ass, whatever. Like, you'll just be our goddess or whatever. She's like, no, you got to train. Like, you're going to get super powerful. I can guarantee that she is going to be like that.
Yeah.
So she's going to be really powerful. And so far, the only maiden we've seen didn't seem to know how to use her powers all that well, frankly. Which was
also got jumped pretty quickly.
Well, yeah. But when we see how she's using her powers versus how Cinder is using the power right after she got it for the first time, like fully, like there's a little bit of a skill gap. Like I'm pretty sure if the Fall Maiden could shoot a giant laser beam of fire, she would have done that. But no, she used frozen leaves, which is intelligent. Not necessarily, if you're gonna have this overpowering power, then
there's also a little bit of the issue that you run into of just basic morality. Of it could be that the original Fall Maiden was not trying to kill them, and
she was trying to kill Emerald though at the end there, stabby, Which still is confusing to me because,
and again,
like,
that's after she's already gotten the crap being out of her. Of she's realized this is now you have to fight to win.
Yeah. That was after her aura broke and everything. Yeah,
exactly. So at that point, she's already fighting at a disadvantage and has lost ground and now has to regain it. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Team Cinder comes in and they have every intention of maiming and killing her. So. Yeah.
Very different. And Cinder's like, yeah, I'm just going to murder you.
Pretty much. Which from a strict tactical advantage, they have the upper hand because they aren't trying to spare her.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. I didn't think about that, actually. But it's still, like, we haven't really seen what a maiden with, at full power
full
trying
strength.
to just go for it has done.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Fold Maiden did seem like a very kind person, so she wasn't going for something that was just going to outright just like vaporize somebody. But hey, they could probably do that.
Quite possibly. We don't know yet.
So we have Yang going off to find Raven, which possibly she could end up near there at least next episode. I'm curious, like, it seems like they're going to meet up this season or volume for sure. I'm just curious as to when, because everyone's getting pretty close to each other. Like, they're almost all in the same continent, at least at this point.
Yeah.
Or at least heading there.
I'm kind of expecting Ruby and Yang to have a reunion, and then Blake and Weiss to have a reunion, possibly after whatever political assassination I'm rooting for Blake, where she has to flee.
Mm-hmm. And Weiss is going after her sister, right?
Who is also in Mistral. So,
right, and who has been tracking Raven, right?
She's been working with. She's been reporting back to Iron Ward about what Leo was up to. So
right, okay. So she might even be in Mistral then. Like,
she probably is. So it's possible. Weiss is going to show up looking for her sister, and then hell, maybe even Blake will show up just fleeing Menagerie. Yeah, well,
Adam also said that this was actually Volume 3 during the flashback of when Cinder kind of took over Adam's section of the White Fang. Adam mentions that he's going to Mistral.
Yeah. It could be the current leader of the White Fang is in Mistral.
That's what I'm thinking. So I feel like what the series of events for Blake, at least, is going to be, they come out with information. People aren't as receptive to it as she'd hoped, because the White Fang probably has a much harder grip on Menagerie than they think. And then because Gira and Callie, they were the leaders at one point, but they've been out of it for who knows how long at this point, probably
and they've been manipulated.
They're the ones that stepped down, so it's been 10 years probably. So they don't really know what's going on with the White Fang, and that was shown in Volume 4 as well, because they're like, oh yeah, you're right, the White Fang is they're a bunch of jackasses.
It's like, what do you mean they're evil? What do you mean they were responsible for the fall? It's that's spoilers.
There is that, yeah. So that's going to fail. Ilya's going to try to get her out of Menagerie, and I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Make out and wait.
Oh, the fanfic writers will have a field day with that.
Probably.
They haven't already. As soon
I'm
as
sure it's out there.
Announced, or shown at all, then their fight's going to happen. Ilya's probably going to end up revealing to Blake that Adam's going to Menagerie to try to take over the White Fang, and so she's going to Mistral to Xenocon to try to take over the White Fang, and then she's going to try to head that way. And then
they're definitely angling to get closer to each other.
Absolutely. So after Yang's little segment, we jump back to Ranger, where
we have one of the best scenes of the episode.
We have one of the best scenes, I feel like, in all of RWBY. It's everything about Crow's performance
in the theater. Wait for it.
Yeah,
I did it.
Everything about Crow's performance, voice acting, animation, whatever mocap they did, absolutely stunning, absolutely brilliant. It looked like a real person doing it, and it was just hilarious. Oh
god, yes.
That part of Crow's character is just incredible.
And again, I want to give a shout out to some of the character animation here, because one of the things that they have Oscar do a lot is he's a very hunched forward individual. He keeps his hands in front of him. He tries to look very small. And when he first comes into the room and he's like, "Hi, I'm Oscar Pine. I'm small and awkward." Wait for it. And then he actually straightens his posture and he puts his hands behind his back in a very Ozpin stance before saying, "You might know me as Professor Ozpin." And I just thought it was a very cool, subtle moment. It was kind of like in the original Superman films where they weren't doing anything with the actor in CGI or anything, but he would just very much change his physicality. And he would abruptly look taller and go from Clark Kent to Superman and then hunch back down and be Clark Kent. I just thought it was a very nice and subtle moment of Oscar flipping back and forth between who he is just based on posture alone.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he's just kind of gaining more confidence about this as he's like, because I mean, he like, until he got the cane, it was just like, I guess this is the thing that I'm doing. Like, I don't really know what's happening. And then he's like, "Oh, this is just some like weirdo whatever." And
even the cane is kind of the first tangible proof of this voice in his head has led him to this crazy guy in a bar and said, "I'd like my cane back." And the crazy guy goes, "Hey, Oz," and hands him a cane. And it's like, oh my God, the voice in my head is real, or I'm now visually hallucinating at this point.
Yep. And that was like definitely something where I'm sure he was like, "Oh, this is real, like this is happening, like what you're telling me is the truth." Because up until now it's just like he's just tried to convince him just on, pretty much his own merit and like the fact that he knows stuff that he shouldn't, which is really interesting and terrifying, yes, but also I'm curious what they'll do more with that, because there's going to be plenty of times where like this kid knows about literally everything in the world, going back however far back Oz goes, which could be hundreds, thousands of years, considering he can fucking reincarnate, apparently. And
now we're going to have Jean wanting to punch him, and Oscar possibly attracted to RWBY just based on his initial Silver Eyes moment. And it's
I feel like there's going to be a lot of, maybe not this volume, but coming volumes of Ozpin taking over his consciousness entirely, and
or
like
Ozpin
Oscar
fading.
Pine. Or that, that's also a possibility, because we don't know what the fuck is going on with that right now. That's pretty weird. And there was the illusion of like this kind of thing possibly happening with Pyrrha and the Fall Maiden, which never came to fruition, but now we see it in Oscar and Oz, so it's like we still get to see like what is going to happen with this.
Though I don't think we actually,
essentially,
we never heard Shannon McCormick in this episode, did we? It was entirely Oscar speaking. Someone on Reddit did point out that if Team RWBY reunites, then Oscar can join the remains of Juniper and they could be Team Orange. And I was like, hey, yeah.
Something I just thought of is, so they have these machines that can put souls into other vessels.
In theory.
Penny, not in theory. Penny is most likely one of those things where they took a soul.
Which my question is, where'd the soul come from?
I still firmly believe that it was Penny's father's dying daughter.
Murder.
Or murder. Murder's fine too. But we could. That means there's potential to get a Robo-Oz, which would be pretty funny.
Ooh.
And also hilariously overpowered.
Probably.
But that's not gonna happen anytime soon, I have a feeling, because no matter what, like, Ironwood's the one with that tech. Guess who doesn't want Oz around at all?
Yeah.
All of Volume 4, if Oz had only listened to me, and it's like, it's quite the opposite. I'm pretty
sure if, 14-year-old or however old Oscar were to show up in Atlas and be like, hi, he'd be like, bang. I don't know. Probably not kill him, but probably arrest him and just put him away.
Probably, yeah. Well, especially if he has the cane, like, oh, you have a relic? Yeah, nah. And that means Ironwood should have one of the relics as well.
Yes.
Since the 4 headmasters have them. So that's curious. And he hasn't
Ironwood
mentioned it
has
all yet.
a lot of power.
He does.
And he's somewhere between psychologically unstable and actually being terribly reasonable, which is not a great place to be.
It's not the greatest place. But that last scene of Ozpin / Oscar finally coming forward to the rest of the group, which I'm really excited to see next episode because I just want to see the interactions between all of these people. And like, oh yeah, I'm Ozpin. Fucking damn.
Jean ain't gonna be happy. If Jean actually believes him, Jean is not going to be happy.
Oh, he's
gonna deck the kid.
Yeah, I'm curious
and
as well.
Crow's just gonna giggle
Because Oscar should have some powers from Ozpin, I would assume, especially if it is a direct soul transfer kind of thing, since, you know, everything that has to do with semblance, aura, and everything like that has to do with the soul. He should have Ozpin's powers.
I would almost wonder if Oscar's semblance is activated, because it may be that he has great potential, but he's not unlocked yet.
It's true, yeah. I don't know that, because you have to unlock your aura, but I don't know how semblance works in that regard. It has to be unlocked as well. It's never really been covered that I remember.
I mean, it sort of got covered in Volume 4 with Ren just kind of emotionally freaking out and then his semblance triggering. So it could just be a stress or trauma or like puberty type thing almost, of just at some point it turns on. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we see what happens, I mean, with Pyrrha, with unstable emotions, plus a very strong semblance, like, it can go out of control.
And in Volume 2, Pyrrha seems quite convinced that at some point they will simply discover what Jean's semblance is. Like, it will just trigger and go.
Yeah. That's, like, through study and stuff as well, but that will be it for this episode. Now we just have the intro to cover. Oh, and of course, Crow falling off the couch. Just that whole scene is just beautiful. There's like this every interaction between characters, because usually in the past, like the interaction between characters, it was good. It made for great character moments, but it wasn't always like perfectly animated, or the voice acting was a bit off. And this whole thing just felt so fluid and smooth and
RWBY's
really well done.
Utter irritation that this is not the first time that she's dealt with Crow in this state.
Oh, certainly not.
And it's just like,
probably since they re-met, like
he might not have gone shit-faced since joining up with them, but this is probably like she's at home playing back when she was younger, and Crow shows up, or when he was teaching at Signal, he just shows up to class drunk.
Oh yeah, because he's always drunk.
He's always drunk.
Something I in the beginning, the intro I'm watching now, Oscar is holding the cane like a sword. So he might start fighting alongside them soon, or at least training. So that would be very interesting. Then Lionheart with the Watt stuff. Adam with Hazel. I feel like this intro is pretty telling as to, like, I feel like all the intros have been pretty telling as to what's going to go down in the volume. And for one, the music, or the song for this, is very dark.
And just, all right, tell me if I'm crazy here. I did not think that was Casey singing when I first heard this.
It doesn't sound like her at all, if it is.
Okay. I did not think it was her, and then when the credits came up and she was listed as the vocalist, I was surprised.
That's impressive, because that doesn't sound like her past work at all.
Per the credits, that is 100% Casey.
Well, good on you, Casey. You have a hell of a vocal range and style.
Yeah,
like, that's amazing.
I was surprised, but I went to the theater screening with my friend Adam and Katie, and I made the comment, and Katie was like, "No, that was totally her," and it was like, really?
It didn't sound like her.
Okay,
to me at all. That could just be getting older and voice changing and such. Because I mean,
it could be.
Volume 1, she was like what, 16 or something, and just like
I think when she was doing she was doing singing for Red vs. Blue season 10, and I think Bernie at some point found out she was like 13 or whatever, and he was like, "What?"
Yeah, very very talented individual.
Yes.
But so we also have Cinder and what I assume to be the Spring Maiden, staring down each other, which a maiden versus maiden fight, which is almost assuredly going to happen at some point in the series, and
Battle of the Seasons. I don't know. We need to come up with a name.
What's up?
Maybe we need to come up with some sort of Battle of the Seasons name.
Oh yeah,
Falls in Session. I don't know. Whatever.
But a battle between these two would just be very destructive. Very destructive. I don't think there'd be much force left afterward, but I'm very excited to see if that happens. And considering, like, you know, Team Salem's after all of the maidens, probably going to end up there fairly soon. And of course, you know, it shows them together. And then Yang and Raven back to back with them looking at each other. Kind of. Well, they like Raven turns and looks kind of at Yang, and Yang just like looks and like not really like back at her, just kind of like to the side toward her. But now, also, I noticed Yang's hair is a little bit different as well.
We're seeing all of these pairings in the intro, but frankly, like we've seen pairings before in other intros, and those characters never interact. Well,
yeah, that was Volume 2 mostly, because most of the pairings, other than that, from the other
Volume
volumes,
3, like they had.
Wait, was it 3 I was thinking of? No, it wasn't. Volume 2. Go ahead. Sorry.
2 and 3. 2 and 3. They did a lot of the characters fighting each other one-on-one, and then those just individuals never encountering each other, at least not in battle.
There is that. There is that. And that's entirely possible. I mean, I feel like this one's a bit more accurate for that, because for Volume 2, like, they even admitted that there was a lot more they wanted to get to, like the whole Fall Maiden thing. Because you can see in the Volume 2 intro, Pyrrha has the maple leaves coming off of her and everything, signifying.
Yeah, and she's having people comfort her and trying to address whatever stress she's going through, which we never really got to.
Yeah, and it's like, that's weird, but then, you know, so I feel like they know a lot better, like, how far they're going to get with this volume.
Though I did see in an interview the other day that the final episode or 2 is not actually written yet. So we're supposed to get a 14-episode season, and I guess they at least don't know the details on how it's ending.
We're going to have a lot of breaks this volume, I have a feeling.
Maybe. I mean, this was a very long episode, and it was very well done. So.
Absolutely, yeah. You can definitely tell they had a lot more time and a lot more practice just animating.
Absolutely. I mean, they had all of Volume 4 to get used to Maya, and now they are none of them should be considered amateurs with Maya at this point. So we're going in full steam ahead. Definitely. And it very much shows in the animation. I'm personally very impressed.
Absolutely.
Because I know my opinion matters.
But we also have Ren and Nora fighting Hazel, which that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, I'm sure that Team Ranger is going to encounter another one of the Salem's group, but I don't see how that they would encounter them without the full group there. Like, maybe they get split up at some point. Who knows? Then we have Blake and Ilya fighting, which makes total sense. Like, that's almost assuredly going to happen. We have Yang and Mercury fighting, which someone pointed out, actually, I didn't really look at this a whole lot, but on the Reddit, they pointed out that Yang has a regular gauntlet on her left hand, and then, like, a flap with a shotgun in it in her robotic arm. So she still does have 2 shotgun arms. It's just like, it's built into... Oh yeah, you can see actually a little bit right there. I'll put this up in the actual video. But there's a little gun on her wrist in the intro.
Everything's also a gun.
It's true. I mean, that makes total sense for, you know, like what her fighting style was. And then, spoilers, like huge spoilers, fucking Weiss has her summon. And
we've seen her summon before now at this point.
Kind of, but like it's the full thing now.
No, but she did that in Volume 4.
In 4?
Yes! Because she summons it and breaks all the windows in her room, and then Klein busts in.
It wasn't really shown, though. That's why I was confused.
Yes, it was!
It was...
The knight's there, and he takes a knee, and he's like, sup. And then Klein busts in, and is, yeah. And
then the window's broken. Okay, got it. I didn't get through all of Volume 4 lately, at least the last episode. I got through all of Volume 3, and then I had to sleep, so I could go to the theatrical premiere the next day.
There you go.
So, Volume 4 is a little bit hazy for me.
What spoilers are you talking about, man?
Okay, but no, she's got the thing in full force, though. Like, she's just doing it. And like, I feel like just with that, she's had the biggest jump in like power out of anybody, except for RWBY with her silver eyes, but she doesn't know how to use those yet. So
yeah,
doesn't really help. I guess Yang knows how to fight better now, and she was fighting Mercury, as I think I said, which she was designed to like fight people who kick, so that makes a lot of sense as well.
I mean, you've got the boxer versus the kickboxer.
Exactly. But yeah, Weiss has her summon full out now and just rocking it full, and I'm excited to see what she can do with that, because that thing's huge. It's full size, and I didn't realize that was going to be the case necessarily. I was curious if they're going to make it like smaller or something to show it's like, oh, she's not like that powerful yet, but no, it's just there. I wonder if
she can summon them of varying sizes.
That's what I was curious about, yeah. Because it's like, I would assume like a bigger summon takes more energy.
It's a little grim. Let me send my little robot after it.
Exactly. But then we see all of Team RWBY going after Salem, which not going to happen directly this volume. I feel that's a lot more just like,
I mean, symbolically that could just be them getting read in on the Salem situation, because at this point they don't know. Man, only RWBY knows the name Salem.
Once Team RWBY gets back together, they're gonna have so many people in that group. They have Crow plus 7 more.
Yeah,
like 8 people in this one group just rolling around. Like that's a pretty strong group. And Oscar now. Yeah, that's right. That's so many people. Well, I guess, I mean, they're going to have to amount a pretty significant force themselves. So
I hope this doesn't mean that we're going to see more major character deaths. We'll find out.
Man, I feel like John is going to die at some point.
And hopefully break RWBY in the process, because that's my big...
Well, just
again, I just
like
love torturing these characters.
It's like I could see him like, being in like this fight for his life, finally unlocking or finally figuring out what his semblance is, and that's still just not being enough.
Yep.
I could definitely see that happening, but as far as major character deaths go, I don't really know. Like I feel like everyone seems to be pretty willing to like risk their lives or whatever to do whatever they're doing, but I guess like they've already like been around, like their friends have died and stuff, so they know the stakes.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see like how okay they are with still going after that, even though their lives are possibly in danger. One of them, like Crow, almost died with them. So
we'll see if he's willing to stick around. Yeah, everyone grow up quick.
But I think that will do it for this video. I'm going to have to edit the ever-loving hell out of this, but that's fine.
Hey, I'm sending you about an hour and a half or so of the video there, so...
Oh yeah, it'll be a good time. But this should be out...
Hopefully everything came out properly.
This should be out the day that this episode goes live for the public. So if you haven't seen the episode already, please go watch that first. I probably should have said that first.
Spoilers!
It's too late now at this point. Just whatever. I'll be sure to mention it next time, but I'll just put this part at the beginning, because that's how editing works.
Spoilers!
But I hope you all enjoyed.
I was doing spoiler hands.
Please, in the comments below, have your own discussions and, discuss what we've talked about here and bring up anything else that you want to, and I'll try to be in the comments and respond to that. I'm sure RWBKos would be happy to do that as well. And thank you for joining me, RWBKos.
Yep, absolutely.
And if this goes well, we'll be doing more. I had a lot of fun with this, so I hope that you will too.
Hey.
Anyway, that will be it for this time, so bye.
Bye.
Hello, Internet. My name is Aqua, and we're doing... And hold on, I don't know how I want to do this. I was like, wait,
hello, Internet. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I was like, do I introduce you first, or do I explain what's going on